A gentle breeze carried the faint scent of jasmine across the dusty field where a small boy stood, clutching a battered wooden stick like a sword. Every morning, he came here before dawn, feet bare against the cool earth, to practice the swings he imagined would one day shatter every doubt in his heart. As the sky lightened, he traced invisible targets in the air, believing fiercely that each strike brought him closer to becoming the hero he was determined to be. His reflection in the cracked window of his little house showed more than a boy, with sun-bleached hair and dirt under his nails. It revealed a fire that refused to be extinguished. Each day at school brought fresh challenges. When the teacher asked questions he did not know how to answer, his face burned with embarrassment while his mind whispered that he was too slow, too small, too ordinary. The laughter of classmates felt like arrows, but each time they flew, he gathered them up and tucked them into a secret journal he kept beneath his mattress. There he wrote not of failure, but of lessons learned, scribbling bold declarations that he would one day prove them wrong. His mother, waking at dawn to wash laundry by the river, found him asleep over his scribbles and pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead. She never asked about grades or prizes. She only smiled and gave him space to dream. The boy's greatest trial came during the annual summer fair in the neighboring town, where a traveling acrobat troupe showed feats of dizzying height and grace. He watched in awe as performers leapt through flaming rings, trusting their instincts and each other. When the troupe's coach invited volunteers to attempt a simple balancing act, the boy's heart thundered. His legs trembled as he stepped forward, hands clammy, eyes fixed on the narrow plank that seemed miles above the ground. Spectators whispered warnings and shook their heads, but he heard only the steady beat of his own determination. Taking a deep breath, he stepped onto the plank. Every muscle screamed. Every instinct urged him to retreat, but he recalled the mornings spent swinging that stick, the silent promises written in his journal. With each careful step, his confidence grew until he stood tall, arms outstretched, breath steady. A ripple of surprised applause rose from the crowd, and for a moment the boy felt as though he could touch the sky. In that instant, doubt loosened its grip on his young heart. Returning home that evening, the boy felt a new lightness. He told his mother of the cheers, of the plank that felt less like a challenge and more like a bridge between fear and triumph. She listened with shining eyes, wrapping him in an embrace that made the world feel safe again. Yet even as he drifted to sleep, he knew that self-belief was not a single victory but a seed to be nurtured. Weeks turned into months, and the little boy's routine of morning practice and nightly reflections became as natural as breathing. Classmates began to notice the quiet change in him. When he stumbled over a math problem, he no longer looked down in shame, but met the teacher's gaze with calm resolve. He asked for help when he needed it and shared his own understanding when others were lost. He found that lifting others did not dim his own light but made it shine brighter still. One chilly winter morning, the boy discovered that the river where his mother washed clothes had frozen into a glassy ribbon. School was delayed due to the cold, and he seized the opportunity to learn something new. He laced his feet into worn skates left by traveling merchants and stepped onto the ice. At first, each glide sent him sprawling. His knees ached and laughter felt cruel as his classmates skated by. But when the sting of cold and pride threatened to halt him, he whispered to himself, reminding his reflection of that plank at the fair of every early sunrise. Inch by inch, he pushed forward until he found balance, skated in circles, and felt a thrill rush through him. The years passed with their usual blend of joy and sorrow. The boy lost a friend to illness, and the ache of that loss weighed heavy in his chest. He doubted his words when he spoke to others, fearful they would not comfort. Yet when he opened his journal and wrote of compassion, of using his own growth to uplift those around him, he found the courage to speak truth from his heart. His friend's family thanked him for the stories he shared, for the warmth his presence brought to dark days. In helping others believe, he realized self-belief was a gift multiplied by generosity. At the brink of adolescence, the boy entered a regional storytelling contest. He had never performed on such a stage. His heart pounded as he stood behind the curtain, hands sweating on the edges of his story scroll. The audience hunched forward, waiting. When his name was called, he stepped out under a blaze of lights that could have blinded him. Yet he saw only the story he carried in his mind. He spoke of ordinary moments transformed by hope, of a wooden stick that taught a boy to swing away fear, of ice that became a mirror reflecting inner strength, of loss bridled by compassion. As he spoke, his voice steadied, carrying every lesson learned. When the final words reached the silent hall, a river of emotion washed over the crowd, and they rose in a standing ovation. Backstage, tears blurred his vision as the trophy was placed in his trembling hands. He thought of every dawn he had sacrificed, every moment of doubt he had faced alone, and he understood at last that self-belief was not pride or arrogance, but the quiet conviction that one's own light could guide the way even in the darkest times. When he returned to his village, he found more than his mother's welcoming smile. He discovered neighbors who listened when he shared his tale, children who asked him to teach them how to face fear. He organized a small group under the old oak tree by the river, where every Saturday morning he guided them through simple acts of courage, drawing their fears, speaking in pairs about dreams, stepping onto makeshift stages to tell stories. He watched as their hesitant voices grew strong, as their shoulders relaxed under newfound confidence. Years later, standing once more in the field where he had first swung that wooden stick, he looked back on the path that had led from doubt to purpose. The stick was gone, worn away by time and use, but the lessons it taught remained etched in his heart. He closed his eyes and felt the breeze carry the scent of jasmine, just as it had when he was a boy learning to believe in himself. In that quiet moment, he realized the greatest power of self-belief was not in the victories it won, but in the courage it gave to begin again, each day with hope. And so he smiled, turned toward the sunrise, and took the first step of another journey, certain that as long as he carried belief in his heart, no dream would ever be out of reach.